I never imagined my life would become the kind of story people whisper about or click on late at night out of curiosity. For most of my adult life, I believed I was a good wife. Not perfect, but loyal in the ways that mattered. I loved my husband, tried to support him, and held our family together when things felt fragile. But love doesn't disappear all at once. It fades quietly, leaving room for mistakes you never thought you'd make. My name is Emily Carter, and this is the truth of how I crossed a line I can never erase. I married my husband, Mark Carter, when I was 26. He was steady, dependable, and kind in a way that felt safe. Mark worked long hours in construction management, and I worked part-time at a local real estate office while raising our daughter, Lily. From the outside, we looked like a normal American family. Weekend barbecues, school events, holiday photos that made it seem like everything was solid. But marriage changes when routine replaces romance. Conversations become about bills, schedules, and responsibilities. We still cared about each other, but we stopped really seeing one another. Mark came home tired. I felt invisible. Neither of us said it out loud, but the distance grew month by month. Mark had a best friend named Jason Miller. They had known each other since high school. Jason was the opposite of Mark in many ways. Where Mark was quiet and reserved, Jason was outgoing, talkative, and emotionally expressive. He was recently divorced when this all began, and he spent a lot of time at our house. At first, it felt harmless. He was family, or so I told myself. Jason listened in ways Mark no longer did. When I talked about feeling overwhelmed or lonely, Jason didn't brush it off. He didn't offer solutions, he just listened. That kind of attention can be dangerous when you're already feeling unseen. Nothing happened suddenly. It never does. It started with late-night conversations when Mark fell asleep early. Jason would sit at the kitchen table while I cleaned up, talking about his divorce, his regrets, his loneliness. I told myself I was just being supportive. That's what friends do, right? But the conversations became more personal. Compliments slipped in. Long looks lasted a second too long. I noticed how aware I became of his presence, and instead of stepping back, I leaned into it. I told myself it didn't mean anything because no one was being touched, no rules were technically broken. That was the lie I clung to. Mark noticed something was off before I admitted it to myself. He didn't accuse me outright, but he grew quieter. I think part of him sensed the shift but didn't want to confront it. We were both avoiding the truth in different ways. The night everything changed is burned into my memory. We were all together at home after a neighborhood gathering. Mark had been drinking and went to bed early. Jason stayed behind, sitting on the couch while I turned off the lights and locked the doors. The house felt too quiet. The air felt heavy with unspoken things. We talked. Then we stopped talking. I won't describe what happened in detail, because the details don't matter as much as the choice. What matters is that I crossed a boundary I had promised myself I never would. I betrayed my marriage, my husband's trust, and my own values in one irreversible moment. The guilt didn't hit immediately. At first, I felt numb, detached, like I had stepped outside my own life and was watching someone else make terrible decisions. But by morning, the weight of what I had done crashed down on me. I couldn't look at Mark without feeling sick. Every normal gesture felt like a lie. Jason avoided eye contact, his confidence gone, replaced with regret and fear. The dynamic in our house changed overnight. I wanted to pretend it never happened. I wanted to bury it and move on. But secrets don't stay buried forever, especially ones that carry this much weight. Mark found out 2 weeks later. Jason confessed. I think the guilt ate him alive. He couldn't carry it anymore, and neither could I. When Mark confronted me, his voice didn't rise. That somehow hurt more than yelling would have. He looked at me like he didn't recognize the person standing in front of him. The pain in his eyes is something I will never forget. There was anger, of course. Shock, disbelief. But there was also something worse, heartbreak mixed with humiliation. Not only had I betrayed him, but it involved the person he trusted most outside our marriage. Jason was cut out of our lives immediately. Mark told him never to contact us again. Their friendship ended in one night after decades of loyalty. Our marriage didn't end right away. We tried counseling. We tried talking. We tried silence. Some days felt hopeful. Other days felt unbearable. Trust, once broken, doesn't come back easily. It has to be rebuilt piece by piece, and sometimes the pieces are too shattered to fit together again. Our daughter sensed the tension, even though we tried to protect her. Children always know when something is wrong. After a year of trying, Mark and I made the painful decision to separate. Not because we didn't care, but because the damage had changed us both. Love alone wasn't enough to undo what had been done. Today, I live with the consequences of my choices. I don't tell this story to justify myself or to seek sympathy. I tell it because infidelity doesn't begin with a single moment. It begins with silence, unmet needs, ignored boundaries, and the lie that this won't go too far. It always goes too far. I lost my marriage. Mark lost his wife and his best friend. And our family will always carry the echoes of that night. If there's one truth I've learned, it's this: temptation doesn't destroy lives on its own. It's the choice to ignore warning signs, to stay quiet when you should speak up, and to take comfort where it doesn't belong. I did that, and I live with it every day.